Hey everyone, this is Cindy. It's the last day of January 2025. I don't know what happened there. I would have sworn I could close my eyes and it was 2020. But this is I Am the Open Door, and this is the hour that we have opened up to have a direct experience as we interact with Helen Hamilton's teachings as they are written. Oh man, my brain. Reality check. I couldn't remember the name of the book for a second. Um, which was fun. Reality check. And all we really do, I think we're going on the third month now where we sit and we interact with the words and we stop and have a direct experience. I'm still in a direct experience. So I apologize. I swear I didn't take a worldly alternating substance, but it certainly feels like I am in an altered state. All right. We begin with YouTube from Helen, and I found one. It's 7 minutes long. I haven't listened to it yet. There was a thought that maybe we've done it before, but I'm not sure if that's true. But here we go.
We have of thinking as human beings. And in my own journey, it really was overcoming these three ways of thinking that took the time. So if you can examine those briefly, and hopefully this will, if you take this in, it'll shortcut that pathway to awakening. So first of all, when I came to this journey, I'd heard that there was something real about me that was invisible and intangible. And I would hear teachers say things like, it's all around you right now, it's everywhere you look, and all of that. And it was very frustrating because I couldn't seem to find it. Since that point later, I came to understand that I could access it through a sense of silence, a sense of stillness, consciousness, the awareness that is looking at everything. But the reason it took me so long was because this first thought that was very well believed, and it is in all of humanity, and that is that what we can see and experience with our senses, what we can hear, all of that, what we can touch, is more real than what we can't experience. And so forms are more real, and they have priority over something that is formless. And even my belief, my deep-seated belief, was that something that is invisible and intangible equaled dead. So I was either here as a form or I didn't exist at all. And that the invisible and intangible wasn't real, that it didn't have any particular importance to it. And if we look at humanity in general, we can see that sort of idea prevalent. Even when we go looking for God, we look for a person, an entity, someone that lives, up in the sky, some guy, some personified version of that. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because with this idea in play, it's very hard to keep bringing attention to that which is invisible and formless: silence, stillness, presence, beingness, consciousness. If our undercutting belief is that the formless silence is less valuable, less important than the things that we're seeing and the forms that we're experiencing and all of that. So the second point I when I began to see that, I began to move beyond that to realize actually the formless might be, and here comes a second way of thinking that we get stuck on. The formless might be more important than the forms. So we go through this stage of neti. I'm not this body, I'm not these thoughts, I'm not these emotions, I'm not the things I see in my life. I'm formless, invisible, silence, and that's the most important thing. And all of this manifestation is kind of just something that's happening. It's nothing to do with me. And of course, that's a valuable place to hang out in our awakening for some time. But it isn't going to be, it's not going to allow us to see the fullness of reality. So we flipped from believing forms are the most important here and that formless is irrelevant to the other way around. Formless is most important and form is almost irrelevant and doesn't matter, and temporary and transient and all of that. So the willingness to make that shift took me a long time in my thought process. And when I began to do this, it became easy to put attention on the silence, to sit in meditation, because I was valuing that more than the thoughts that were going on in my during my meditation and all of that. And then that felt good for a while, and I got very good at meditation. And still, my life was kind of screwed up though in the rest of it. And this led to this third and final kind of way of seeing, which again took a big readjustment. But what took the time in that was really this idea that there's this resistance to seeing it. So the third idea is that form and formless are the same thing, the same one being, that the invisible consciousness, presence, silence is so powerful that it can show up either as nothing at all or as everything. But they are not inherently two, they are one. Even to say they assumes plural, but what can you do in language? That there's only one thing and it can show up as form or formlessness. And at each stage along this way, it took me a while to work up the willingness to shift how I think about reality. I thought I knew what reality was. It's this physical world I could see. And then I was sure it was only this invisible world that I couldn't see. And then eventually I had to admit it's both. And at both, the idea of both falls away. Their duality ends there. It still seems to be, but... And the reason I'm saying this is so that if you are finding that you're stuck at any point of suffering, it could be because you put more willingness into, do I need to change the way I'm thinking about myself, about reality here? And what happens when I do that? Does it have to be a long drawn out process where I suffer and then finally come to some recognition that my thoughts need to change? Or can I preemptively look at where my thinking is static and look at how I can come to change that? So this was a major shortcut to awakening for me, major, when I got this. It's not really the things that I'm thinking about. It's my willingness to change those ideas. And in awakening, the next stage of our awakening deepening quite often includes a total 180-degree shift in how we're thinking, especially for those first two stages, for want of a better word. There aren't really any stages, and as human beings, we're conditioned, programmed to find out the right thing to believe in, to think, the right way to think, and hold on to that with everything that we've got. And that's going to trip us up in our awakening. So can you re-examine where you're holding on to something that seemed very true at one point and now needs to be challenged and even let go of? And in fact, the exact opposite may be true than what we believed.
Anybody like to share anything before Michelle begins to read?
I would like to share just briefly that in finding the Advaita in A Course in Miracles yesterday evening, we brought up the question about fear and how can fear be a part of the one? And I think she just answered that question beautifully. And so I'd like to sort of recap it or at least open it up. And actually, I'll just stop there because Patricia might have something to say about it too. I don't
Yeah.
know, but
Izzy and then Patricia.
where,
I
oh, I
saw
didn't.
Izzy go like this.
Okay,
Yep.
I didn't see that. Okay, good. Well, I'll stop there. So the question was, how can fear be a part of the one formlessness, the truth? How is that possible? Go from there.
Actually, I'd like to stick with that rather than what I was going to say.
Meaning that we're moving on to Patricia. Okay. Patricia, it's all yours.
It's amazing. Synchronicity is amazing. That was exactly where I was going, Amy, was about fear. It's like being stuck in fear. I am so stuck in fear. And it's fear of the future. It's not fear of the moment. The moment I'm not afraid. Right here and now, I'm not afraid. But it's like the future. If this happens, I will have nothing. If this relationship blows apart, I will have nothing. For example, I mean, that's a true example. So I am so stuck in that. And as much as I may say to myself, it's just a thought, breathe into it, surrender this to the Holy Spirit and see what happens. And don't forget, I'm new to A Course in Miracles. So this is a phrase I'm taking on that really feels quite good. I just surrender this to you. I don't know what to do with it. So I don't know how to match that. I don't know. I can't imagine that the Holy Spirit would want anybody to feel this kind of fear. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
And before Izzy shares, Patricia, I heard everything you just said. I'm curious how, first of all, just so that you know, I don't know if you've had any experience with Helen Hamilton before, but she's not a Course in Miracles teacher. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
How did what she just shared affect your holding this sense of fear?
Well, in the three stages, form and formless are the same. Again, that doesn't make sense to me, but it's a good question to ponder. The first one that it's that invisibility of the Holy Spirit, or that, and then the room I'm sitting in, which is my studio, is a mess. It needs to be organized. I don't want to do it. So all of this disorganization is part of the invisible. I don't get it yet. That's the operative word.
Holding on to the question is a beautiful place to be. Now, Izzy.
Yeah, I have this tiny little thin book that somebody wrote. I can't remember her name or anything. And the name of it is Love Loves Fear. And that's what I'm doing to work with fear lately is actually loving it. And it's not such an easy, it's interesting. If somebody comes over, I hide that book because it seems so insane. I don't want anybody to think I'm nuts. But I believe that love loves fear. And it's if we put into place the loving all method, if we can't love something, then accept it. If we can't accept it, then allow it. And when I go into that place of accepting or allowing, or if I get to a place where I actually can love fear, then it's just simply gone. It's just that's where it goes. So that's my contribution to this conversation.
Thank you. Here's my contribution. I'm having a really hard time speaking. I'm still in this altered state. A lot of past memories over the past 20, 30 years have been floating to the surface of my awareness lately. And the reason it comes up now is because I've noticed that the being I was then, like I had severe panic. Patricia, you and I just met. So anyone that knows my story knows that at the beginning of this journey, I had intense severe panic disorder. Multiple times a day, I thought I was dying. That's what stepped me into this journey. And these memories are coming up along the path of various fear, anger, like all sorts of things. I don't know the being in those memories anymore. She's not, that story is not here. But the one thing I did along the way over those, well, it's 25 years now, it wasn't 2000 when this started, was that I just kept showing up, asking questions, asking for help, doing the best I could, and now I'm here. So holding a question, showing up, not giving up, it's miraculous. Just being where you are. Yeah. So that's my contribution. And before whatever's next is next, Amy, I'm curious if there's more for you to add to this, to what you began here before we move on.
May I just say one thing before Amy, excuse me for interrupting. How this came up, I was working with a client before coming on, and this was the topic. The topic was fear. And here we are talking about fear. Okay, how did that happen? It's my question. I'll live that one.
All right.
Well, I just love us all so much. I I I struggled with fear. I think everybody in this Zoom call has struggled with fear, and each of us has had our own, special fear that manifests in its own special way, seemingly. I can only share with what my path was and still is, because every day is coming back to center every day, because this world pulls us out of center. And one of the things A Course in Miracles taught me that I am so appreciative of is that that's the job of this world. The job of this world is to make us feel separate, and it's doing its job very well. And when we feel separate from source and from each other, fear arises. So the world's purpose is to convince us that we are separate. And our path as spirit is to discover over and over again that we are not separate. And Patricia, what you just brought up today and what Source just sent you in this entire morning has been knock, knock, knock. You're not separate. The discussion is fear, but look at what I'm putting in front of you. I am giving you the answer now, and you're open to it. And so I would say take those seemingly small moments and rejoice in them. Milk them for all they're worth. Put your faith in them, because that is God communicating with you. That is direct communication right there. Right? So hear it, take it, bathe in it. right? It is for you, right? Right.
All right. Is there
Love it.
anything on anybody else's heart to share before Michelle reads? If Michelle ever gets to read. Hey, Pat, which I say with a gladness in my heart, in case anybody was wondering, there is no rush here. All yours, Pat.
Patricia, where are you? I'm looking for you, huh? There you are. You're just too down for me. Hi. Well, we were at a meeting with Cindy on Wednesday, and somebody said a sentence which I will get to, and I love to write those things down, look at them and think about them and think about them and think about them, and and not think about them. But in the first chapter of the course, it says, "Perfect love casts out fear." So if fear exists, then there is not perfect love, but only perfect love exists. So if there is fear, it produces a state that does not exist. So only perfect love exists because there's only one thing, and it, call it God, whatever you want to call it. But that's what we're talking about here, non-dualism. So and it says somewhere in the course, you only have two choices of between two emotions, love or fear. But only perfect love exists. So this was what somebody said on Wednesday. There's only love or a call for love. So it's what you're calling it. You call it fear, but it's a call for love. So yeah. So it's you calling yourself to love yourself. And I know what you're talking about, being in a space that's cluttered and disorganized. It makes me nuts. But I have a wonderful friend. And I said, and she's great at organizing stuff. And I said, you see this chaos? It's making me nuts. And she just organizes it, So you need a friend that is good, who's into organizing, so you don't have to do it. Because she does it so much better than me. Like I come in and I come out and I'm throwing stuff in and around, and then it's it's what they call entropy. It just turns into a mishmash, and then my brain's being disturbed by it. And she just comes in, and the sanity comes over my brain. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, a call for love. I had an experience, in a long my journey here, but my experience was that my little girl was always standing next to me, crying, always crying. She had okay, I'll get to that part. And my basic attitude towards her was like, "Will you shut up, please? Will you stop it?" And then one day I went, wait a minute, this little girl has plenty to cry about, plenty. So I said to her, you know what? You go ahead and cry. You go ahead, because you got a reason to cry. And I had the most amazing experience. It was like, whoosh, whoosh. And all of a sudden, instead of having her separate from me, we were together in one. And after that, I had just a whole cascading memories came to me, and I went, whoa, there was so much that opened up to me when I loved that part of myself that was asking for love.
Shall we read? You ready, Michelle?
I'm ready.
I wonder if anybody, I'm gonna open the book to where it ended. Like I try not to touch it in between. I think we were just a paragraph away from ending the chapter. That's my memory. So here we go.
What do you think? I mean, Amy, you pretty much keep track of things, and I put my bookmark here that we had just finished chapter 5 and we were ready to do chapter 6.
I think I was not there for the last reading. I think I was in bed. So
Mine's marked at chapter 6 as well.
All right,
I'm sure Rana's right. She always is.
there we go. We're on chapter 6.
Okay.
Chapter 6, the difference between the noumenon and phenomena. What is real and unreal? First, we must begin by explaining and defining what noumenon and phenomena mean. The noumenon is something which exists outside of and is undetectable by the human senses. It is not something that can be experienced by us as something that comes and goes, because it is not perceptible by our five senses. It is most certainly not the opposite to phenomena. A phenomenon is something that can be observed as existing. It can be experienced by our senses, and it can be thought about in our mind. A phenomenon is an object of our perception. Here is a basic error or assumption in our thinking process. The noumenon and a phenomenon are opposites. All the phenomena exist inside the noumenon. Here is a fact and what actually is true. There aren't any phenomena because they simply appear to exist inside the noumenon. The noumenon is all pervading, so all phenomena are made out of it and are it. The noumenon has no opposite. It is one and it is beyond all duality. The noumenon and phenomena are the same. One and only appear to be different. Wait,
Do we want to stop and look at this?
Definitely want to stop and look at this.
Read that last sentence again,
yeah,
Michelle.
So the noumenon and phenomena are the same one and only appear to be different. The noumenon and the phenomena are the same one and only appear to be different. Yeah, that's a lot.
May I jump in here? Because I think the discussion that we had yesterday around the video that we watched with Dan Siegel and I forget her name. She's beautiful.
Tara Brach.
Tara
Brach.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm doing a Cindy here. My mind and my mouth and my body are kind of on different time levels right here. So the way that I look at this that helps me is I look at all, and it's kind of what it's what we already read. I look at this supposed world and I look at the hard surface of the glass and I think, okay, this is a glass and it must be real because it's containing water, and it must be solid because the water's different than the glass, and on and on and on. And this is a pen and the pen's different and it's solid and I can hold it and therefore this is real. All of it is just molecules and atoms that are moving in and out of existence. And then those molecules and atoms are actually made of even smaller particles. And those particles are made of even smaller particles moving in and out of existence, all arising from the sea of potentiality. Right? All arising, instant by instant by instant. You know, I keep coming back to the attosecond, which is our latest ability scientifically to measure time. And an attosecond is 1/millionth of 1/trillionth of a second. 1/millionth of 1/trillionth of a second. So things move in and out of existence faster than our little finite mind can even begin to see clearly, but we know that they do. And so what she's saying in this is that all arises from the sea of potentiality. All apparent objects arising from first their quantum form and then into their subquantum form, or their more than quantum, and then their atomic structure, and it all happens like that. And then we perceive it in this finite body as being finite. But we are originating from the sea of potentiality, and that is what we are. We never are not the sea of potentiality. And that's our true foundation. That's our true home. And even actually beyond that, into the dark, what I just call the dark womb of being, the dark, warm womb of being, which is beyond our minds to even imagine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle, I can't raise my hand, but if you don't mind giving me a few minutes before I hand it to you.
Sure.
As I was listening to Amy, I'm just inspired to just come at it. It's the same, but a slightly different words. And they come from what blew up for me when we listened to the Dan Hoffman, not Dan Siegel, the Dan Hoffman, Rupert Spira podcast a number of years ago, and this concept of the virtual headset. And essentially, the phenomena is what can be experienced through our five senses. Our five senses, though, are conditioning based on what we believe to be real as a human being. The Google headset that Don Hoffman, whose life mission is to look at the hard problem of consciousness, states that everything that we can see through our sensory perceptions is programmed. It's like putting on a Google headset and being almost like a non-player character within the conditioned experience. And those who are willing to hold in place the unanswerable questions. So now I'm being informed by the last 3 weeks of looking at people saying it's important to hold on to the unanswerable questions. We blow holes in the conditioning, and we allow what's outside of the conditioning to basically rewrite us. And we move up in vibration, and we now see something much larger. So when we're willing to accept experiences like the one, Patricia, very specifically you're talking about, like you're sitting and the question arises in you, what do I do with fear? Fear is here. I'm willing to accept the teachings. I'm finding myself immersed. Every day I'm sitting in the teachings that tell me that only love is fear, love is real. And here is all this fear exploding in me. What do I do with it? And now you're like, I don't know, when these things started to happen to me, the little self-sphere exploded for a while, because I kept getting experiences like the one you just looked at that could not be explained by my conditioning. That's the noumenon. And the more we allow ourselves to accept the sea of possibility, consciousness, that the noumenon is as real as the phenomenon. And then essentially what Helen just said is that they're one and the same. They're just, the phenomena is the experience of the five senses. The noumenon is what happens when we say, but that ain't it. Things start to merge and become one. That just happened. All right, Michelle.
Okay, so this really helped me. So the word noumena tangles me up a little bit. So I found some beautiful synonyms for noumena. Breath of life, recesses of heart, spiritual being, This is a good one. Vital force. So that helped me because Numina it was bringing me down a little bit. But anyway, I appreciate this conversation so much. Thank you for your shares. This is really great.
So, how does that sit with everyone? Does anybody else want to speak either from their question mind, their confusion, or their clarity, or anything else about? I'm also in awe of the Numenon because it appears that the book and this arbitrary video and the conversation and everything else are all the same thing. Hey, Barbie, did I just see you just go like this?
I still don't understand the difference between the two.
There is no difference. That's why you don't understand it. Other than
Okay.
to say, like, the phenomena, the way it's described by Helen, are the things you can see, taste, touch, feel, the beings that are in your world that are not doing this work, that don't necessarily believe in God and something that they can't see, the ones that are around you that don't feel the trees and have the experience of trees like you have. They say, this is food. I need, like, they're black and white. That's the phenomenal world. The noumenon is when you step out of it. And my sense is you might not be understanding it because they're merging it from everything that you've been sharing. They merge in your experience so beautifully that they become one. Does that make sense? Yeah. Richard.
Morning, everyone. I'm reminded and prompted to share a quote from Rupert Spira. Rupert said, "There are three possibilities in life: to be something, to be nothing, to be everything. And the first, there is suffering, to be something. And the second, there is peace, to be nothing. And the third, there is happiness and love, to be everything." And that's what I think she's saying. Being everything is just being everything. Yeah, so I'm finding that a pretty good place to be the more I practice it. And we're open-minded, like you were saying, Cindy, to the possibility of being everything. Both the non-dual and the dual, both the real and the unreal, well, everything. So whatever arises is real for me at that moment.
I heard it as you were saying it, Richard. And it's interesting, in my global diet community, there's a conversation about why we continually repeat the same kind of instructions over and over and over again. And I'm just laughing. It's like, it'll stop when it's no longer needed. But as long as we believe in suffering and that you and I are having it, whatever, then there's value. But I saw it, the something is the phenomenal, is the first thing Helen was talking about when I thought I was a form. The nothing is when I was loving meditation, but my form life sucked, And the third is understanding that there's no difference between the two. Like I got chills like running up and down my body. How amazing. What's that? I can't remember. What was that word that we learned yesterday about when different teachers and teachings all come to the same conclusion?
Consilience.
Yeah,
Consilience. Thank you. William.
What Richard said kind of triggered also. There's a quote from that I came across a number of years ago that I keep coming back to. And it's from Liberation Unleashed that she wrote. Something is happening. This is it. The rest is all story. And somehow that has just made it so simple for me in one way, because I do drown in my story about other stories and so forth. And so I just love it when the story almost seems to evaporate for whatever moment that is. And so I just feel that nothing. I think the fear that I have is so, I think, what? Because I've been scared all my life. At least that's the label I put on it. It was an uncomfortable feeling, had all kinds of different dimensions to that. But it's what if I didn't use the word fear, even like in Course in Miracle, love or fear, perfect love casts out fear. What for me, I just sit like I'm a nothing. I'm just, it's like so separate, so separate, so separate. And it is like dying. And I hear, wow, people talk about dark nights of the soul. So I make that story up, what it would be like. Because when I get really scared, when I'm so alone, so awful, I shouldn't exist, that feeling, oh my goodness, it just, so I think, and when I'm with someone who's so despondent and find myself just being so calm with them, I guess that reminds me, oh, I can be that way with myself. So, and it feels like a visually formless and form. It's almost like swoosh. They just kind of blend. They blend into each other. They are oneness, and then they become so distinct, and then they're all the same. So I just, and I love the space here that I don't really have to do anything. And I love that sense. I don't have to believe anything. I don't have to do anything. And I love the energy that I feel in this group, just this curiosity constantly. What's next? It's here now. It's here now. So,
Before you mute, I was watching
excuse
your
me.
hand. Before you mute, I was going to actually ask you to do something. But first, by a raise of hands for Patricia, how many people have felt a fear so overwhelming they didn't want to exist in this plane anymore? Yeah. The second thing, yeah, was I was just going to ask you, and you can say whatever you want, William, but I was going to ask you to repeat the quote slowly a couple of times, if you wouldn't mind, because I had never heard it before.
Something is happening. This is it. The rest is all story. And having said that, I'm not sure it said something is always happening or just something is happening. And I believe it's just something is happening this moment. And what I get from that too is like the moment, the moment, the moment. To me, that's what Numenon, what everything, it's this right now, this moment. Somehow when I kind of shrink everything into the moment, that takes care of every story I could ever possibly make up. Because it's like I've made that's it. That's it. That's it. Anything else is story, words, thoughts. It makes it so simple, it seems.
So it's.
And the other thing is again that laughter. When I heard Papaji again, I go back. It's in the space of now, the moment where there are no words, no thoughts, no story, nothing. It's something that erupts, and when we laugh together, we are in that space of oneness. It's just you can't. And oh my goodness, there's free of story, free of anything. It's just the moment, the moment, oh my goodness, I love it.
Yeah. Something is happening. This is it. All else is story. I feel like I just dropped into something stunning. Hey, Izzy.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. You said something on Wednesday, Cindy, that I've been thinking a lot about that might help unravel this thing about fear. And you said we think our problems make us special. And I've been thinking about that a lot because it's absolutely true for me. You know, when I go over my problems, I go over, oh my God, well, I've got all this trauma, and here I am trying to run this rental business all by myself without not guy helping me, and all, you know, all that stuff. And I think that makes me special somehow. Instead of remembering that everybody else is basically worrying all about the same thing. But that specialness, I mean, don't we want to feel special somehow? Isn't that a bottom line that so many of us have that haven't yet grasped that we are love? And so I wanted to share that. And then Laura Bedford said something that helped me because I'm used to being a visual person. But it helped me understand love and the noumenon. And she said, love vibrates at a jaw-dropping, incredible frequency. And somehow that picture of that just brought it all home in a really different way to me. I just love that. I've been thinking of that so many times in the last week or so. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. The visual I use for this whole, what was coming up, is I just keep going like this in my space. I love my fingers, right? I love my fingers. Each one is unique. Each one has, they work as a whole, and yet they look different. They have different functions. But the moment you cut them off from the hand, they wither and die. They're just no longer of use. And so they're individuated and they're gorgeous. But which one would I give up? Which one of us would God give up? It doesn't even make any sense. Yeah. And I have Byron Katie in my head saying that her husband, Stephen Mitchell, was translating scripture that was so old that it was on stone. And that scripture indicated that those beings that were first learning how to write and capture stories and experiences had the same little problems. My mother hates me. The Byron Katie is a big one on that. My mother hates me. I'll never find a man. You know, or is my family going to start? Doesn't matter. Like the same set. And in my head, I started looking at them like Lego bricks. Yeah. Love the hat. All right. So it's 10:49. Do we go back to reading? Does anybody want? Okay. Michelle, you there? You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
As we learned in the previous chapters, we are conditioned to value only that which we can perceive with our 5 human senses, or that we can think about. Our mind thinks about the objects we perceive with our senses because it thinks they are real. Once we have come to see that our true essence is the formless self, we will tend to reject the forms or the phenomena that we see. To realize the ultimate state of reality, it is necessary to stop trying to distinguish which is most real. As spiritual students, we had to develop an ability to discriminate between, quote, real and unreal, unquote, or, quote, truth and illusion, unquote. And this was very necessary until now. In this final seeing, we must come to realize that if we are trying to decide which is most real, we will be excluding something else. Our journey of realizations usually goes something like this. Step 1. I am this body. Here we are convinced that we are a separate being that was born and will die. We are excluding everything else that exists in our definition of, quote, me, unquote, and, quote, what I am, unquote. Step 2. I am not this body. Here we come to realize that we are not limited to the body. We are formless in our nature, and we identify as that formless self or awareness. We feel strongly that we are not any form, any manifestation, and we dismiss anything transient, temporary, and changing as unreal. We can become very detached in this step from our mind, body, and our life. Step 3. I am the formless self and all that arises out of it.
Michelle, can we stop?
Yeah.
Saying this out loud for me. And there's tears in my eyes. No matter how long I'm in this path, it still blows something up in here. When the noumenon or the Christ light or the truth of our being is this available to me. You would think if I believed only what I saw, or if I would to believe that Cindy was in charge of anything, the old project manager who needed to do it right, it would feel like here that Cindy got up at some point, read what we were going to read next, and then went in search of a Helen Hamilton video or teaching to correlate with what we were doing here. That's how closely aligned they are, at least here. Cindy, the character, has never read this book, not once. This is the very first time I'm seeing these words. I was in a dyad until about 3 or 4 minutes before I opened the room, and Barbara was there a minute after me. I opened up YouTube, typed in Helen Hamilton, and clicked on the first video clip that was under 10 minutes long. And so something else, who we are, but not any aspect of my conditioning, put that together. And I'm not saying it for anything outside of myself. It's just that there are aspects of my life, like wanting a car, that Cindy still thinks she needs to do something about, right? But if something is scripted to the point that that just took place, then it feels like the only job here is to laugh at all the other parts here that believes that she's in charge or that God needs. There's somebody that keeps telling me God doesn't need your help. God just needs you to get out of the way and let it flow, right? And that's what this moment feels like here. Yeah. So like I'm freaking, there's an altered reality going on, but it really feels like more than anything else, I want to take that experience and bring it to where Cindy thinks she has worldly situations that needs to be resolved outside of that. Because it doesn't make any sense. All right, I'm waiting for somebody else to speak. Do we keep reading now or what? We have 5 minutes. All right, Michelle, I'm screen sharing again. Here we go.
Okie doke. Step 3. I am the formless self and all that arises out of it. In this step, we have come to see that anything which has arisen out of the self must be the self also. We now include all objects and forms in our definition of what we are. We may say or believe something like, quote, I am the formless awareness and all that arises from it is me also, unquote. I'm going to say that last sentence again. I am the formless awareness and all that arises from it is me also. The important thing to note in this step is that although we may have included all form back into our self definition, what we know ourselves to be, we are still seeing form and formless as different. The vital point to understand here is that I may still think of myself as two different things. We may say the manifest arises out of the unmanifest source, or that all of this creation arises out of the Creator. We could also believe in God versus Godhead. We must come to see that even this level of realization will cause us to suffer eventually because it is still seeing two different things. We are still discriminating between real, which is the noumenon or formless self, and what we think of as unreal, which is the phenomena that we see coming and going. If we stop for a moment and directly experience what we are, we will find only one in that direct experience. Let me caution you again here against thinking about the self. Of course, you will have to use your mind to understand what is written here, but to check it against your own direct experience, you must actually look with your inner sight to see what you actually are.
Do we stop there?
That sounds good. That's a good place to stop.
We can begin with step 3 next week if we want.
I think it might be helpful to next week to read that again, all of step 3 to that point, and then delve into the direct experience, because I love this pointing about you may have to use your mind to understand what is written here, but then let's check it.
I actually made it pink. Maybe it'll help us remember. Anybody want to say anything before I turn the recorder on? Izzy, is that you saying you want to say something, or is that you playing with your cat?
No, that's me saying something. Yeah, you were talking, Cindy, about, the small self needing to accomplish things in the world. And it just made me think that, isn't it, we do need to accomplish things in the world. However, isn't it a continuous surrender? It's just surrender after surrender after surrender at all times. And maybe that's part of, there's a term, pray without ceasing. And maybe that's a part of the prayer. There's such confusion about what praying is, but, it seems to me like the surrender is a very real part of that prayer. Anyway, that's it.
And all I'll add to what you just said is absolutely this, whatever Cindy is, she's doing things in the world, like creating this meeting space. It's just like, from what thought process is it happening? The conditioned self didn't do, like the conditioned self knows how to run the Zoom meeting, turn it on, knows what time it is, all of those things. But the conditioned self didn't find that video, didn't get you all into this room. Like there's something else going. The noumenon is in charge of the stuff that's important. The phenomenal aspect seems to be the hands that allows the noumenon to move. And when the hands believes it's in charge of the bigger picture, that appears to be when I suffer. Like when I'm trying to figure out how to solve the problem, there's pain here. Yeah. I am being lived. All right, Barbie.
I just want to thank you for explaining the two, because when Michelle was reading step 3, my whole body she was talking about the formless, my whole body's shaking. I'm still trembling here. I mean, something's going on. I have an idea what's going on, but this is phenomenal. I mean, thank you.
It looks like William's not here anymore. So what was the quote? Something's happening. This is it. Everything else is story. Is that the quote? I keep forgetting it, so it must be
Something
important.
is happening. This is it. The rest is all story.
Maybe. Trisha.
Yes. What I'd like to say is this is being here with you all touches me so deeply. I have no words. So I just want to say thank you. Maybe that's the word.
And with that, I turn off the recorder.